Everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mr. Joe, could you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is the local planning agency. It's an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners who will make the final decisions on these items. Items 1 through 4 on today's agenda will be heard by the county commission on December 3rd. Item 5 will be heard by the county commission on December 8th. When a motion ends in any kind of a split vote, a roll call vote may be taken to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn their microphone on so that your voice is on the record. At this time, if any board member has had any ex parte communication regarding any application, please disclose so now. All right. I need a motion for the approval of the LPA minutes from October 19th.
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Second.
A motion by Ben, a second by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, just for a moment, we're just double checking to make sure we have a quorum because we are missing a couple members today.
Oh, here's Mr.
Okay, yes.
We're good.
We're good now. He's just arrived. Thank you.
All right. Okay, there's an item on our agenda today. It's item 5 in regards to the relating to vacation rentals. Any people in the audience there, if you're related to that item, could we see just a show of hands? That's pretty much everybody. Okay, so we don't become redundant. Now, everybody has 3 minutes if you want to speak. But is there any way maybe if those that are for could walk outside, if you could pick a speaker to come up and talk? Because I know I went through your public comments, and almost everyone's saying pretty much the same thing. You know, the parking area, the partying, you know, the quality of life, you know, the value of your home, the trash on the yard, the beautification to the ocean. Now, that's just an option. And if those that are for or against, or we'll go those that are against, if you want to step outside and pick one spokesperson so we don't go over this every other time. Well, then let's do this. Those that are against this item, we see a show of hands? That's a majority. Against it. Correct. Right. Would y'all want to meet outside then and pick one spokesperson? Okay, well, you all have the right to speak if you want to speak, but you're going to get 3 minutes and we're going to get one shot. We're not going to go back and forth, you know, like they did at the BCAC meeting. Okay, well, we'll go from there then. Item 1, please, ma'am.
Item H1, Clarence Coomer requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from AG to Res 1.2.5. That item is 20PZ 00080, and that's in District 1. This is the small-scale comprehensive plan amendment. There will also be H2. H2 is the companion zoning, and of course, those two will be voted on separately.
Okay, is the applicant here? Yes, sir. If you could please come up to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Clarence Coomer, and I live at 1600 Garden Street.
Okay, and what are you looking to do here, Mr. Coomer, with item 1?
Just trying to get it rezoned from agriculture to where I can either put a house or a trailer on it.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
a question for the applicant.
Yes, sir.
The back half of your property looks to be mostly wetlands. Have you had an environmental survey yet to determine where the wetlands are?
I did have a survey done, but it didn't necessarily include that portion of it. But I've also walked the property numerous times, and there is a portion up that's like right there close to the road that is that never actually gets wet because I've looked at this the overlaying portion of it, and that part is actually very viable in order to put something on there, and there would still be plenty of space.
I was just wondering if you had any plans to do any kind of development on those wetlands areas.
Nothing but using it for maybe horses or whatever. I mean, I'm looking at it more of a spot like to retire, because our family's lived here for over 40 years, and this is the place that I want to retire to. So having something like that, and I wouldn't want to ruin what's already there too. I mean, there's a lot of wildlife, and I don't want to impose on any of that.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ron. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Currently, with the agricultural zoning, is he able to put a house or a trailer on there as it sits now?
George, can we answer the zoning question? Thank you.
The zoning is not non-conforming. It's substandard. It doesn't meet the minimum size requirements when the lot was created. So he has to rezone to a different zoning classification to use the property.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think this is just some simple housekeeping, and I have
Yes.
I don't see any concerns with this, so I would like to motion to approve item H1 as it reads.
I second the motion.
A motion by Ben, a second by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously. We're going to need a
This-
motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. The second item?
Yes.
H2. This is the companion rezoning. Clarence Coomer requests a change of zoning classification from GU to RRMH-2.5. This is 20Z00024. It is also in District 1.
Yes, sir. The applicant, please, you're going to have to come up again, sir. Thank you for your name and address for the record.
My name is Clarence Coomer, and I live at 1600 Garden Street in Titusville.
And this is the same thing, what you're looking to do?
Yes, sir. Nothing. The only difference, I guess, is the difference whether or not you can put a house or whether or not you can put a trailer.
Correct. Any questions from board?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in the staff comments, the MIM small area study was mentioned, and one goal of that study was to preserve agricultural lands. However, this is not really agricultural land. It's not being used for agricultural purposes. I believe changing it to Res 1 2.5 is appropriate for this area. Also, this zoning will allow us to recognize the current development plan patterns in that area. I move that we recommend approval for this zoning request.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, a motion by Ron, a second by Pete. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
The next item, H3, is 4725 Fay Boulevard Land Trust, requesting a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from NC to CC. That would be neighborhood commercial to community commercial. That number is 20PZ00088, and that's in District 1.
Is the applicant here? Same thing, sir. If you could state your name and address for the record.
I'll pull my mask down so I could speak.
That's fine.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Carmine Ferraro, Carmel Development, 3860 Curtis Boulevard, Port St. John.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do. Yes,
Sure.
sir.
I'm here this afternoon to ask for your support and recommendation for a future land use change for our property. What I want to do is just do a quick brief overview of why I'm here. We already have a commercially zoned property. It's zoned BU1A, and it has a future land use designation of neighborhood commercial. The corner is developed with a Family Dollar. It's about a 10,000 square foot retail store. Pretty much everyone's familiar with the Family Dollar chain. Next to it is 1.6 acres remaining, and that 1.6 acres is zoned BU1A. It currently has a church on it, and it's been the intention of the group to find a retail match for the Family Dollar. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now. We were approached by Ace Hardware, which is like a neighborhood type hardware store, again, familiar with that chain. We thought, quite simply, all we had to do was go ahead and get Ace to sign the contract and sell them the commercial property. When we were going through the due diligence, we found out that Ace Hardware had two requirements to their contract. One was they wanted an outdoor garden center where they do their normal displays like most of these hardware stores do. And secondly, they wanted to have a separate entrance, which is further down the road, where there is a driveway around the back of the building that wraps around the back of the property. Do you guys have the site plan in front of you? Okay. Which was previously closed when we had the Family Dollar approved. We agreed to close that road at the request of the Port St. John Special Dependent Advisory Board had wanted that road closed. Family Dollar didn't have a problem, so we agreed to close it. We put it in our binding development plan, and we moved on. Ace Hardware feels that the traffic flow for delivery traffic is going to be exacerbated and made harder with the current intersection the way it is. It sits about 75 to 85 feet from the intersection of Fay Boulevard and Adams. and they just felt it would be safer, it would be better for them to have that delivery entrance. So in order to do that, we had to come back in and modify our binding development plan. We also had to get Ace Hardware to agree to no outdoor garden center, which after a bunch of back and forth negotiations, we got them to agree to that. So we thought we were pretty much ready to go again. We were ready to submit our request to change the binding development plan. We found out that under the BU1A zoning, we were told by staff that a hardware store is not permitted. So that was a little bit of a surprise to me, because even though I didn't see the name hardware store in the BU1A permitted uses, when you look at A, it says the following uses or other uses of similar nature are compatible, that are compatible with the character and use specifically set forth. All business uses and materials and products shall be confined within a substantial building completely enclosed with walls and roof. So where we saw other uses of similar nature, we started looking at all the different uses that were permitted. Antique shop, bookstore, I'm just looking at the retail ones, florist store, gift shop, hobby shop, jewelry store, optical store. When we got to the P's, we thought we were okay because it said paint and wallpaper. So we thought, well, that's, pretty much 30-40% of a hardware store is paint, wallpaper, and those type of goods. And we felt like we were okay. But we weren't, because staff had told us, no, that's actually only a use that's approved in BU1, not in BU1A. So we said, okay, we had to make a decision, go back to Ace Hardware, because it's taken about a 7-month journey for us. Do we want to do this? Do we want to go back in? And they said, okay, we'll wait, we'll let you do it. We found out that under the BU1 zoning, we could not just go in for a zoning change, because the future land use for that is neighborhood commercial, and we needed community commercial in order to support the BU1. Understanding the history of changing future land use, I've been involved in a lot of these different situations with different clients and different properties. I know it's hard to consider changing a future land use map unless you're doing it in a planned environment. But this was the only way that we could get this retail hardware store to go in this property. So what I want to do is I just want to share very quickly. This is the Family Dollar right now that's there. This right here would be the same building. By the way, the ACE is going to build a very similar sized building, 10,000 feet, pre-engineered metal building with a nice stucco exterior and some finished gingerbread on the front, but it's pretty much the same type of building. This is Sherwin-Williams. Under the current BU1A code right now, Sherwin-Williams could go there. But when I put an ACE sign on the building and I put the hardware supplies in there, I can't do it under the current zoning. And I'm not here to argue the code. I think it's wrong, and I think maybe somewhere down the road that could be something that could be addressed down the road. But right now where I'm sitting, I have no choice. In order to get this use approved, I have to come stand before you and ask you to change the future land use map. So I don't do that lightly. It's a very serious thing, but it's the only way I can move forward. So I'm asking you to support that this afternoon. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that there is some precedent, as you have in your package. There is precedent for this. There is a parcel about 4 parcels away that actually has the community commercial future land use. And they went through a similar situation. I believe it's a proposed dollar store. I don't know what the stages, where they're at. I don't know if they're going through their site plan approval now or not. But they had to come in and change the zoning, change the future land use map. Now, to be a responsible developer, this is what we offered right up front. We will amend our binding development plan if you approve the future land use change and the accompanying zoning change to BU1. So we will restrict everything in BU1 except the retail hardware store. That's it. The Ace Hardware will be able to do the outside garden center, which I think is a real plus for Port St. John. And they'll be able to do their operation. We're also willing to keep everything as it is right now with the other restricted uses we had put in before we did the Family Dollar. Now, the second part of the discussion is relating to the binding development plan, but since we're going to do these twice, I'll stop there. I'll let you discuss or ask any questions that you have of me about the future land use.
Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I
sir.
have a question. You're going to be tearing down the building that's existing there and putting a new building in place, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We're actually gonna, the existing building, the church is made up of 4 modular parts. They're actually like a mobile home put together. And we're gonna donate that to a church or a school because we have no use for it. It'd be a shame to just tear it down. But the new Ace Hardware will go in the same footprint area. And that's another thing to bring up is that the site already has off-site retention. The county provides retention for the entire site. All the parking's in place. So all they have to do is just build in the exact same area that's already the grassy area and where the building is. And of course, it'll have to go through full site plan approval.
Okay. And I also had a question for staff relating to the hardware store. Do we know what the justification is for why hardware store is not allowed in BU1A? I mean,
Yes, because,
we allow a paint store, a
well, right now,
drugstore.
we're talking about the land use. And the land use, it would have to be in community commercial. Community commercial is pretty intense, and it's meant for a regional and sub-regional.
I understand
Okay.
that.
Okay, now to the zoning, which is the next item.
Mhm.
If you want to ask that now, George Ritchie can speak to the zoning.
I think it's relevant, but, well, let me rephrase that. It's probably not relevant, but it's something I think that we as a board should recommend be changed. It's, when we say we can't put a hardware store in neighborhood commercial, we allow dollar stores and paint stores, drugstores that sell the same things that a hardware store does. But anyway, that's kind of getting off the point. As far as the land use change, I believe that what the applicant's recommending with his BDP and limiting the uses to simply BU1A plus a hardware store gives the community the protection they need and that they would desire to keep this as a neighborhood commercial area. This way we can meet his requirements and still provide significant amount of protection without creating a highly intensive commercial area. Thank you.
Mr. George, could you speak on that, please?
Well, the zoning code's been around since 1958. When the BU1A zoning started, it did not have very many uses at all allowed in that zoning classification. There were many conditional use permits that the board had to approve to allow those activities to happen within this neighborhood restricted classification. In the 90s, we went through some administrative rezonings, and we had the board adopt an ordinance to move some of the less intense uses from BU1 and copy them over into BU1A so they could provide more services than what they had. So BU1A did not start with these uses, and the use that he's referring to as a hardware store is still listed as a permitted use in BU1, which is why he has to rezone.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
I don't have a question, but I have just a statement. I happen to agree with everything Ron said, and I think that all of the members of the community would probably think of this project as an asset. So it's something that I would certainly be in favor of. That's all I wanted to say.
I'd second that.
We need a motion first.
All right, I make a motion that we recommend approval of the land use change.
The comprehensive plan amendment,
Yes,
item H3.
I'd
Correct.
second that, Ron.
okay.
All right, so we got a motion by Ron, a second by Joe on item H3. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Don't leave yet.
I know.
We're going to H4 now.
Item H4, 4725 Fay Boulevard Land Trust requests a change of zoning classification from BU1A with a BDP to BU1 and amendment to the existing BDP. That project number is 20Z00031, and that also is in District 1.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board.
I have a couple questions relating to the zoning. What you want to do is to open up the back pathway that was closed. Currently, as I believe, there is no actual barrier that prevents traffic vehicles from using that.
That is correct.
Does Ace Hardware need to have that open for customer traffic? Or
No.
do they really need it only for deliveries?
Only for deliveries.
Okay. Would you be willing, or would they be willing to put up a gate of some kind that would prevent traffic from going back and forth, such that the only time that gate's opened is when a truck comes and an employee from the store goes out and unlocks the gate, opens it? My concern is there's a little kind of school right behind there,
Yes.
and then there's Challenger School
Yes.
just across the street. So there could be a lot of kids going across there.
Yes.
In my mind, if there's a gate that has to be opened and an employee has to come out, you now have the employee, plus you have the driver, acting as two sets of eyes to look out for the safety of pedestrians.
Yes, absolutely. We would be willing to put that in our binding development plan. We'd also put up signs that say delivery only. And we would also, because when we did the Family Dollar, we went over to the principal, I think it was Challenger, and we talked about how the flow of children is and what time that occurs and everything. So absolutely. I mean, the safety of children is so important. So we could put whatever we need to put in there that would, and when we go before county commission, we'll have it all ironed out. But to restrict certain times of day, maybe when we know the school is letting out or when the school is going in the morning.
How often do the deliveries come? Are they like weekly, or are they multiple times a week? Or?
The good news is this type of delivery, and they typically get one delivery a week. It's a large truck, and it brings everything. It's usually on a Thursday in Port St. John.
So that shouldn't present a hardship for the company to do that?
It shouldn't, and it's easy to work around it, and we would make it part of the, if we put it in the binding development plan, then they have to abide by it, because we're going to sell them the property ultimately.
The other question I had was on the staff comments. Have you talked with DOT to get to be sure that your driveway would meet requirements of DOT?
I don't believe DOT would be involved. I know the existing driveway that's there with the Family Dollar is an existing driveway. We have a cross easement with them to access through each other's property.
Okay.
I mean, if we had to talk to FDOT, we would, but I don't believe we'd have to talk to FDOT to reopen that driveway. I think that's a county. Is that correct? Is it a county road?
Yes, I think that's a county road.
Okay. All right. I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Any other questions from board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval for this. And with that stipulation in the BDP about putting a gate on that access.
Basically on the service entrance.
I'm sorry.
On the service entrance, you're saying?
Yes, on that service entrance.
And then also the outdoor garden, that would be included in the BDP as well?
That's what he's asking for, is an
Yeah,
outdoor
yeah.
garden, and
The
that's why he
outdoor
needs to have
garden
the
would be
BU1
permitted
zoning.
in BU1, so they
Excellent.
would just have that. It's typically about 2,000 to 3,000 feet behind their building, and it's a fenced-in area.
Perfect, thank you. Just want to make sure it was included for you.
Yeah.
The BDP is restricting it only to this one use.
Right. So we got a motion by Ron, we had a second by Joe. All those in favor say aye, and this is item H4.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, just a clarification on H3. Carmine, we need those exhibits that you showed made part of the record. They're not currently in our file. The photos that you showed, photos that you held up. Okay, we're going to need those. All right, thank you.
Okay, item H5.
Okay, item H5 is a proposed amendment to Chapter 62, Article 6, the zoning regulations relating to vacation rental being a permitted use in certain zoning classifications. I'll give you a little bit of background on this item and the current regulations. So about a year ago, staff was asked to look into the possibility of whether or not vacation rental could be made a permitted use in zoning classifications where short-term rentals, Airbnbs, resort dwellings are not currently permitted. So the county attorney's office at that time researched the issue. There is state legislation that's in place that we didn't want to run afoul of. So the short answer, and you have a memo in your packets regarding the answer from the county attorney's office, is that they believed, yes, it could be done as long as a definition of vacation rental was adopted that was in conformance with the state definition. So that's what you'll see here, is that we've added that definition of vacation rental. It's a little bit different than the resort dwelling definition that's existing in language. We would keep that as well. So where resort dwellings were already permitted, you'll see that language remains. In February, this item was brought back to the board, and there were a list of mostly single-family residential zoning classifications to add vacation rental to. So we've done that. And then on September 15th, we got legislative intent and permission to advertise these amendments. So you'll see in your packet an exhibit like this that kind of goes through our more than 50 different zoning classifications. Resort dwellings right now are either permitted with conditions, or require a conditional use permit and have to go to a board hearing. Those last two, the permitted with conditions and permitted as part of a public hearing process, are really rare because there are some other parameters around that that make finding those types of instances rare. So right now, the only place that you'll find resort dwellings are really in multifamily uses and residential attached uses like duplexes and fourplexes. So what this amendment would do is open that up to the rest of the single-family zoning classifications. Vacation rental would be opened up to those single-family zoning classifications, as well as, let's see, the mobile home zoning classifications and the PUD zoning classifications. So those were kind of the major changes that you'll see in your packet. But really, this graph is probably the handiest to explain what's being proposed today.
Board, I would like to ask too, does anyone up here have any questions for Amanda? Amanda, correct me if I'm right or wrong. You wrote this, correct?
Right, so the board gave us direction on September 15th, and we authored the amendments given their direction.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, just for clarification, this is for Brevard, unrestricted Brevard County only, and local municipalities would regulate if this was something that was allowed in their own cities.
Right, so this is unincorporated Brevard County only. Most of the towns have their own regulations that have also been grandfathered in. Our regulations have been on the books since prior to June 1st, 2011. So our regulations are grandfathered in, and I did some research of about the dozen municipalities that I looked at. About 9 of them had regulations like ours, similar to ours, that were also grandfathered in.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I had a question for staff. When I read through the proposed ordinances, looking at all the whereases, I didn't see any that identified a benefit to Brevard County residents. In the direction that you were giving,
Okay, we got to work together here, people. We're going to give everyone their time to talk, and please bear with us. This is going to be lengthy.
in the directions that you were given by the county commission, did they give you any hint about what the benefits would be?
So staff's role is really to draft the amendments in accordance with the direction that they give us. They didn't direct us to quantify impacts or benefits at this point. If we receive direction like that on the 8th, December 8th, when we go to the first public hearing, certainly we'll do that. But that was not part of the direction that we were provided on September 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions by board to staff? Okay. So anyone that wants to speak against this item, sir, we'll start with you. And now in between the speakers, we're going to, Mr. George, are you going to be in charge of our cleanliness? Thank you, sir. If you would just we'll go through the first row and keep going back. If you got to state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Jason Steele. I live at 343 Orlando Boulevard in Indialantic. And I am the lobbyist for the city of Indialantic and the city of Satellite Beach. And I'm an expert in the courts on real estate laws, zoning, and issues of that nature. The most important thing we do as a person or an individual is we decide where we're going to live. And when we do, we bring our wife and our family, and we look at every piece of zoning information that you can get, and we determine whether we want to live by a church, whether we want to live by a school, whether or not we want privacy, whether or not we want the ocean access. And we, in fact, make that decision based on zoning ordinances. And we research the zoning ordinances very, very clearly and very long to make that determination, to protect our family and to protect our livelihood and protect our family. I have fought this piece of legislation in Tallahassee all last session, and I can tell you it is the most controversial piece of legislation. And I know private property rights because I've been involved in real estate for over 50 years. But I can tell you this, private property rights have the right of private, residential, absolute enjoyment. And when you make a decision to go into a home, into a residence, into a zoning category, the last thing you want to happen is for a county to come up and tell you that that zoning code is no longer good. That zoning code is now gone because what you have now is you have Party Central moving right next door to you. And you've got not only one family, but 10 families. You've got weddings. You've got all kinds of stuff. You've got trucks. It's amazing what you will have in a neighborhood that allows vacation rentals. My wife and I just bought a lot over on East Coral Way in Indialantic. The first thing we did, it's in the county, was determine whether or not they could have vacation rentals in that neighborhood. The answer was no. We're going to put $1 million into a home over there. Our family needs the privacy and the right to be able to enjoy that property. I asked you today, for each and every one of you that have children in a family, to not, in fact, pass this piece of legislation, pass it on to the county commission. In my opinion, it's unconstitutional. It does away with zoning, and it is wrong, absolutely wrong. I beg you to vote against this.
If we could keep the clapping down.
Thank you.
And thank you for staying in your time frame.
Thank you very much.
All right. Sir, would you like to speak? Okay, we're just going to go down, I'm going to go down the rows and move our way back.
My name is Kirk Souter. I live at 345 Woody Circle, which is in District 3, the Woodlands, right on A1A Woody Circle. I live in a 74-home restricted community, HOA community. I was the president, not currently, but for 8 years, and I intend to be again next year. I just took a break. I'm here representing myself and my family, not really as a representative of the HOA. There's plenty of people in my neighborhood that will be here to represent themselves. I don't want to be redundant. I do want to ask, has anybody read any
Mr. Chair,
of the...
I'm sorry. Can you speak a little bit closer to the mic? We
Sure.
won't be able to pick you up for the minutes.
You can stand it up there, yeah.
Whatever you need to do. Thank you. I apologize.
That's better. I'll speak up. Before I get redundant, has anybody read any of the emails in opposition to this proposal from the residents, our survey that we have going, and any of the
Yes, sir, the
stuff
website,
online?
everything.
The website, right.
Yes.
So you're familiar with that, okay. So I don't want to get too redundant in all the reasons.
Thank you for
So-
that.
So I just want to bring up some of the, I'm just going to bullet point these items so that maybe other people can speak on them if they want to. But these are the reasons that I personally am in opposition to this proposal. By the way, I met with 7 other of our residents on the island side, the beach side, with Commissioner Tobia on this issue. And a couple of the things that really raised my eyebrows was that, one, he has future interest in buying an investment property on beachside to turn it into something like an Airbnb or a VRBO. So there may be a little conflict of interest in that. Also, I know that he got a lot of campaign money from developers through this, in front of this last campaign, that were pushing him to push this legislation through. That's just a couple of key points I brought out of that meeting. First thing I want to bring up is the hotel motel industry. We're really not doing them any favors by passing this, because that's our tax revenue. If we pass and allow Airbnbs, short-term rentals, that's going to put them out of business. I don't think we're being very nice to them. That's where our tax revenue comes from now, through the tourist industry. Our infrastructure, when we were zoned residential on the island, our infrastructure right now is already being taxed. Emergency services, water, electric, traffic has all, to me, has all maxed out. Allowing short-term rentals will exponentially bring more and more stress on that and demand on that infrastructure. The ecosystem.
Sir, that would be.
I'm sorry.
No, that's your 3 minutes there.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you, though.
Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am, would you like to speak? Sir? Okay, moving back. Ma'am? Yes, sir. Please come up.
You had to defer until later, sir.
Well, I'm trying to work my way back.
I defer until last, please, sir.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me then?
I'd like to listen to what everyone else has to say before I put my own opinion in, please, sir.
Sir, would you like to speak?
Yes. My name is James McGrath. I live at 6400 South Highway, A1A, Melbourne Beach, known as Floridana area. I also organized a group of 8 people to meet with Commissioner Tobia. And I'd like to point out a couple of things that really bothered me from that meeting. I have to ask, what was the impetus for even making this change? Honestly, I can't come up with one reason that passes my common sense test to have a change. We have it grandfathered in. I bet you that and I said this to Mr. Tobia, why don't you go down and take a pulse of the area, the South Beaches, and some other beaches, and see what the people really want. Do you really think they're going to put an Airbnb in Palm Bay or West Melbourne? No, they're going to put it in the most lucrative areas they could find. And those areas are like the South Beach, unincorporated Brevard County. He told me, the reason doesn't even, like I said, doesn't pass the common sense test. He says, make language more like the state. Well, why? We haven't passed any laws in the state that we have to change our language. Leave it the way it is. When we come to that bridge, we'll pass it. He also said the homeowners can do whatever they want to do. He believes in property rights. Well, I believe in property rights too, to an extent that they affect me. And I guarantee you that 99% of the people that live in these areas don't want it. I know it. But nobody even bothered. I asked, did you ask anybody? He says, no. I said, well, what brought this up? He says, well, I had somebody that didn't understand zoning. One person didn't understand zoning. So none of what he said passed the common sense test to me. He also said, oh, we also going to get the tax money from Airbnbs. I said, really? I said, do you know about the court case they had down in Palm Beach County? He goes, no. I go, well, in Palm Beach County, the county wanted the Airbnbs to pay them the tax. Why? Because the county knows that the people aren't going to pay the tax. Ask the people who do online shopping, do they pay the sales tax? Except maybe Amazon or something like that. But the answer is no. So it's folly what he was saying to me. Without delaying my time here, I'm totally against it, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of this from the people up here today. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, sir. Audience, I'm not trying to be rude or short with nobody. It's just we've got a lot of passion in here, and we just want to try to keep this thing under control. But, sir, I want to come back to you, and the reason I'm doing that is so I can keep, in fact, who's spoken and who hasn't. Because we're going to allow 3 minutes for everybody that wants to speak.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you seeing me. My name is Robert Osters. I live at 150 Seaview Street on A1A.
Yes, sir.
The ecosystem, for one thing. I mean, I don't know how many, everyone here obviously should know about our ecosystem. The turtles in this area, has anyone really, obviously no one's done an environment study as said, but I talked to Mr. Tobias' chief of staff. The gentleman told me, it's complicated. Everything's we want to simplify. I'll tell you what simplification is. It's someone coming in and telling you, you have to give up your home to what's going to happen to you. This is all I have to say right now. I hope I can get enough community that goes with me to go along with, as this gentleman said, I don't understand how anyone can possibly see a benefit in this. No way in the world. Thank
Okay.
you.
And, sir, looking at your hat, thank you for your service.
Can you hold on just a second, sir?
I may.
Chair, can I address that?
Yes.
You've got 2 minutes left, and you made a comment about coming back later. You may not have been to one of these meetings before, but once you speak, you are not allowed to come back and speak again. So if you want to keep your 2 minutes, I would suggest you.
I think I've said enough, sir, but thank you very much for informing me of that. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
And, ma'am, you said you're okay? Okay, we'll go back to the next aisle. Ma'am, would you like to speak? And just your name and address for the record, and if you could bend the microphone down so we could get everything on record.
My name is Cheryl Hernandez. I live at 122 Pelican Drive in Melbourne Beach, Florida. I'm involved with the No Daily Rentals drive that we've been trying to inform the community about what's going on with this. Our community outreach statistics as of today, Monday, November 23rd at 1 p.m., we have reached 11,371 people through our Facebook page, over 300 Facebook members and followers, 2,800 page views on our website in less than 2 weeks, 409 signatures on our original petition, which ran until November 3rd, 319 signatures on our new petition, and 429 responses to our online survey in opposition to the zoning change. The final draft of the ordinance revision shows addition of vacation rental in every residential area. The color-coded chart that's in your packet is a real good demonstration of that. The only thing that's not included is environmental area, government-managed lands, and institutional use. Everything else is residential. And it's all green now where they want to allow vacation rentals. This virtually adds commercial use to residential areas. Brevard Code 62-1102 defines resort dwelling as a rental less than 90 days and states that a resort dwelling is commercial use. Therefore, vacation rental, since it's a rental of less than 30 days, would be considered commercial as well. This ordinance revision will insert commercial use into each and every residential zone classification in Brevard County. In 2006, a lot of time and research went into developing our current zoning regulations to protect residential neighborhoods from commercialization. This violates the future land use element. The administrative policies for the future land use element establishes criteria when considering a rezoning action. The worst, quote, the worst case impacts of potential uses available under applicable land use classification shall be evaluated. Compatibility with existing land uses and historical land use patterns are some of the criteria. The character of a neighborhood or area shall be a factor for consideration and must not be materially or adversely affected. As you've heard from these people today, and you'll hear from more, the negative impact to the character of our communities will be catastrophic. In 2011, as you know, the state statute was adopted to give control over vacation rentals to the state and limit the ability of local governments to regulate vacation rentals except where local laws or ordinances were in place prior to June 1st, 2011. Brevard had those. The county attorney's office gave an opinion to Tobia's office on November 7th, 2019, which you have a summary in your packet. And basically it says any new zoning classification that would allow vacation rentals would need to be permitted without any restrictions or conditions. Anything that is not changed will be allowed to stay in place. Allowing these changes will relinquish all local control over vacation rentals to the state. We lose our grandfathered status and we cannot go back. The new classification comes with no restrictions, no limit on how frequently it can be rented or for how long. Airbnb owners are not required to check government IDs either for daily renters. There are currently designated areas where these places can exist, and many hotels and motels with oversight on premise to host overnight guests. As was stated before, it may not lead to higher tax revenue. As was stated that Palm Beach County lost their lawsuit against Airbnb to collect those taxes, and it falls back on the vacation rental owners to pay their taxes. Our county will have to collect and enforce those.
Thank you.
3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Please vote against this change. It's this change.
Sir, would you like to speak? And if you could state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Graham. My address is 6795 South A1A Highway, 32951. I've been a resident of, I've owned oceanfront property since 1976 here in the area. I consider myself reared in this area. I spent weekends saving sea turtles, surf casting, and clamming actually in the river. And it was a wonderful experience as I was reared. I've also observed panthers crossing A1A. The natural beauty of Floridana in general. I am an advocate of short-term rental, and I'll explain why. I know I'm not a fan of everyone in the room, but I think restricting income and our freedoms is a little ludicrous. I was actually impacted, I guess, in 2011 when previously we could do short-term, and then that changed. Unfortunately, for the last 10 years, I've had to have an annual rental, which means my children unfortunately have not had the ability to experience what I had when I was reared. Frankly, it's the only way that I could afford to keep the house. The 90 plus one day makes sense from a seasonal standpoint, but there weren't a lot of options, and the duration of renting over the course of the year kind of precluded the ability to do that, which is why it's been an annual. So we still have the home, but unfortunately my family can't enjoy it. So that would be a benefit is income, where we aren't limited, we aren't restricted. Obviously. So from my viewpoint, the onus is on every property manager to make sure that it abides by, what you're supposed to be doing from a rental standpoint. Everyone understands the red lights, everyone understands the restriction and the limited parking and so on. And again, as a responsible property owner, anyone coming in ought to be able to abide by that. And then if not, there should be penalties and all of that associated with it. So anyway, I've said my piece, and I appreciate you all reconsidering the change in short-term rental. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go back to the next aisle. Ma'am, would you like to speak, sir? We'll scoot over. Yes, ma'am. And if you could state your name and address for the record, and as close to the mic as you could, that mic will bend down. So
Okay.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, my name is Lisa Jewell. My address is 240 Ocean Ridge. It's Melbourne Beach address, but I am in the county. And the reason I've come out, and I know a lot of people have a lot of different things that they've come up to say to you. I did a little research. Our Ocean Ridge is been there. I've lived there 20 years. It's built to a new development that Phoenix Park and Lennar are building in right next door. It's called Harbor Beach Club development. Anyway, I thought it was important for people to see what they are advertising on Lennar to attract people to own and build here. One of the things it says talks about three single-family floor plans, varying from 4 to 8 bedrooms in these homes. So families and groups of all sizes can be accommodated. With so much room in each home, Harbor Island Beach Club is perfect to raise a family or rent out to vacationers. So can you imagine? I was shocked to start finding the new plans that they're putting out there. And we're talking 8 bedrooms diced up in these places, and we don't have that accommodation. My fear is it's not going to just turn into, monthly, weekly. It's going to turn up to groups of all sizes. They're encouraging even on here about you can stop there and then go take your cruise at Port Canaveral. So it's not what we're used to. It's not what this community was built for. I mean, we moved down here 20 years ago from Cocoa Beach to get away from all of that in the short terms. And so I'm hoping you guys will really consider, because this is the start of it. And then they're going to start to want to get a hold of other places to develop. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. We'll scoot back to the next row.
My name is Dolores Conway. I live at 123 Cardinal Drive, Melbourne Beach,
If you
Florida.
could get closer to the mic. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. I don't want to duplicate what everybody else said, but I'll try to read.
Thank you.
Okay. I oppose the zoning code revisions to Chapter 62 and the creation of the new definition of vacation rental. I oppose that. With a broad brush, the commissioners are seeking to redefine all of the unincorporated areas of Brevard County, while keeping the other 16 cities and towns untouched and Airbnb-proof, pretty much. So ours is being held out. The proposed changes not only creates a new definition of short-term rentals, it wants to apply to over 40 zoning classifications, allowing a hotel-like business in any place without a buffer. Brevard County is 72 miles long. There are many communities sprinkled out. I'm not familiar with any of those, but I can tell you about our section. Melbourne Shores is in Melbourne Beach. It's a long-established community of single-family homes, varying in age, style, and size. It has parks and playgrounds, piers, boat ramps. Our area is known as the South Beaches. It's roughly 10 miles long and less than a mile wide in most parts. We are the sliver of land between the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian River Lagoon. Try to skip this here. The South Beach area is dotted by many single-family home communities, home occupied by families with children, retired military, veterans, older retirees. Our area has one road in and one road out. It's a two-lane A1A. We have no public utilities, no city water or sewer, very few hydrants, no causeway. The closest is 12 miles. Due to the lack of infrastructure, no future plans to build them. Because of that, FEMA downzoned the density to R1 in our area a few years ago. You're probably familiar with it. So the single-family homes in the South Beaches, the goal was to hold density down. Changing the zoning to allow Airbnb short-term rentals is in direct conflict with FEMA's goal. With as many as 20 to 30 Airbnb guests checking in and out of just one home every few days has increased the density, it's concealing the increase in the density. Let's see. Somebody already talked about that. Okay. Please vote no on this. Please vote to do nothing and leave everything as is. Please leave the current resort dwelling definition of a short term. Just leave it as it is, please.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Sorry, I got nervous.
That's all right. Nothing to be nervous about.
Thank you for listening.
We're the ones that's nervous up here. See, y'all outnumber us. Sir, would you like to speak? Okay, we'll jump back to the next row, ma'am. If you could state your name and address there for the record.
I will. I am Tony Chan, 116 Medina Street, Melbourne Beach, Floridana neighborhood. And I'd like to point out we're opposed to the zoning change, definitely. For one thing, there's plenty of rooms for rent along A1A, legally, right now. If you want a room, look for one. There's plenty of rooms out there. There's motels, hotels, there's legal Airbnbs along A1A. They're allowed to be there. These places, hotels, motels, require inspections. They have to get licenses. They have requirements they have to meet. You start opening up short-term rentals, they don't have to keep up with any of those requirements. The other thing is, so you're going to put these hotels and motels out of business, the little mom and pop small businesses. I don't know about any impact been provided for small businesses. We don't have an infrastructure. We don't have restaurants down in the South Beaches. Our recreation is fishing, surfing. We have our own kayaks. We hike the trails. The destruction I've seen from short-term rentals, particularly in the 6700 and the 6800 block of A1A, destruction of the dunes, harassment of the turtles during nesting season, enough to make you cry if you live in the area. There's no need for short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods when there's so many rental rooms available. In our neighborhood, north of us in the Atlantic and the tourist areas up in Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, near the cruise lines, you don't need to come south. If you do, pick a nice little campground. Don't pick my neighbor's house and bring all your friends and leave your trash out Monday morning when we don't have garbage pickup until Wednesday. It changes everything we love about our private beaches and neighborhoods and preserves. Our dune and habitat destruction ensues when these renters, they don't know, or worse, they don't care about our neighborhood because they don't live here full time. We do. So we ask that you oppose this. It's very important to us to maintain our private beaches and our private neighborhoods. Nice, quiet neighborhoods where we all know each other's name. I've recently been in the hospital. My neighbors prepared my meals. They walk my dogs. They do everything for me. I don't want any of that to change. Thank you for hearing me.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, would you like to speak, or sir?
Good afternoon. I'm David Vreeland from South Melbourne Beach, specifically South Shores, Riverside. I'm just going to try to point out a few practical things because most of what I had in mind was already covered. But
thank you for that.
We're halfway, roughly, I think, through the 10-year plan to clean up the Indian River. You add all these people that come in, and they don't really respect the environment like we who own property in South Melbourne Beach. That's going to wind up in the river, and we don't need that impact on top of what we've already had to deal with to get this far in cleaning it up. Number two, our community and a number of communities up and down South Melbourne Beach, we have a gate, and there's a code to get in our gate. So all of a sudden, we're going to be having people that we don't know given the code to get in our gate, and who might they pass those codes to? Our security goes right out the window. Third, this isn't your bailiwick, but it's a consideration, I think, before the commissioners decide to pass this thing, if that's the way they want to go. A1A, we've had our house for almost 20 years, and I've long worried about the weekend bicyclers that love to use that stretch of road. In many places, the pavement from the white line outwards is less than 12 inches. About a month ago, there was a woman that was hit right in front of our community bicycling, and she, from what we gather, she had some kind of some reason to swerve her bicycle, and the car hit her because there's not that much room.
Right.
So that plus the fact that when people that come in for a short term in a residential neighborhood, they don't realize that it's not a resort, and they treat it like a resort, and somebody else is going to clean up after them, including on the beach. And if the county is going to encumber the residents of a quiet community like we have, we know the county isn't going to clean up the beach after these people leave. So I just wanted to say those things and hope that you folks will advise the commissioners accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, would you like to speak? I'm sorry, the other one right beside, okay. Oh, nope, you're good. Come. I was actually talking about the lady that's sitting beside the man that just spoke. So we're going to get you next, ma'am, on the end.
I'm going to tell you, these are just reading glasses, and I have a distance problem, so I couldn't see who you were pointing to.
That's all right, no problem. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Patricia Keller, and I live at 136 Regatta Street, and that's in Mark's Landing, and that's about 6 miles north of the inlet. And I've been there about 18 years. It had come to my attention last month that an ordinance amending the zoning classification to allow vacation rentals would affect my neighborhood. Purposes of zoning: promoting and protecting public health, safety, and general welfare, protecting the character and stability of the neighborhood, and conserving the taxable value of the properties of the neighborhood. If this ordinance passes, It will more than likely violate all these. Public health. Allowing transient visitors in your neighborhood could curtail the physical activities such as walking, biking, jogging, etc., of the residents not feeling comfortable around people they don't know. Safety. This ordinance will allow transient visitors in the neighborhood who you don't know. I've heard and read that many parents would be very concerned for their children's safety and maybe their own. General welfare. Change that feeling of well-being into worry, anxiety, discontent, fear, aggravation, and even anger. Character. This ordinance would change the character of the neighborhood by mixing a single-family residential use with a short-term rental use, daily, nightly, weekly rentals. What will prevent investors from buying up properties for short-term rental? Commissioner Tobias made an interesting comment regarding short-term rentals at the 9/15/2020 meeting, and I quote, "Short-term rentals are an economic driver. Stability. Bringing in short-term rentals may determine who buys properties in the future. What will prevent investors from buying up properties that are for sale? What happens to the stability of the community if that occurs? Will families still want to live or move there? Conserving the taxable value of properties in the neighborhood. This ordinance may erode the value of homes, negatively affecting the property taxes, less money for the county. Several years ago in Monroe County, the Keys, a retired general, became so fed up with the short-term rentals in his neighborhood that he was able to get enough signatures on a petition to place it on a ballot of the next election. It passed, and now you can't rent a house for less than 30 days. I've heard the argument on the other side that being able to rent short-term will help people stay in their house. I asked myself, where will these people live if their house is rented? If you can afford another house, then what is your motive? May I quote Tobias again at that meeting? Maximize the opportunities of our citizens. Short-term rentals are an economic driver. Don't degrade the quality and tranquility of our neighborhoods for a monetary gain. The two are not of compatible value.
Thank you.
Is that my time up?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it is?
Yes, ma'am.
That was 3 minutes.
3 minutes and 8 seconds. I ran over.
Well, what I wanted to say is
We're
don't violate the
all good,
trust
but
of the
thank you.
people, okay?
Okay.
Don't violate the trust of the people, because that's what government will do.
Ma'am, you got up last time ready to speak. You don't have to be short. You have 3 minutes.
Didn't get to come, but.
Your name and address, please, for the record.
All right, Lynn Gronowski, where do I live now? I've lived in 2 neighborhoods, but I live at 393 Hiawatha Way, and I'm in Sunnyland.
Okay.
All right. I have lived in the South Beaches in 2 different neighborhoods for the last 30 years. The reason we bought there was because of how awesome it is down there. My husband and I used to drive down there all the time when we lived in Melbourne and decided that's where we wanted to be, even though it was a long drive every day to work, 30 minutes or more, 40 minutes for him, and we did it for 25 years. So the reason we did it, because it is quiet, nice, we know our neighbors. It's awesome to be able to know everybody on the street, and there's people that'll look out for you. Allowing short-term rentals, for me, just totally changes that. It becomes more traffic, more noise, more transient. People are coming and going. It's just not the same people. You know, this is a family-oriented community, and I just can't understand why we would want to change that, especially today with all the things that are going on. Why would we destroy neighborhoods and communities? That's what we need more of. So I'm having a hard time understanding the whole thing, except if it's to make some money by some people. Most of everything else has been covered. Basically, the other thing I've heard a lot about is trying to get code enforcement out. You know, I heard, oh, just call code enforcement. Well, you know, they're only there certain hours. That's going to be really difficult. Then you're calling the sheriff. It's just a hassle. And the problems are not going to get resolved right away, and they're not going to get resolved quick. I know all about, you know, renting homes and being a landlord, being property managers. I have 8 properties. but I do long-term rentals. I'm not doing weeklies or anything else. So I do know about this, and I do know there's a lot of bad landlords and a lot of bad property managers out there. I hear this all the time from my tenants. So I can't count on the fact that someone's going to come in and buy up a property, an investor. They don't even live here. A lot of them, they just want to swoop in and buy something in a nice area that they know that people are going to come. So I'm just totally against it. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. No. 6. We've got enough. How many do we need for a quorum? 6?
We needed 7.
Need to have 7? Because Mr. Ben has to leave us in about 10 minutes.
I'll stick around as long as I can, but
Okay, so now we're going to scoot to the back row. Ma'am, would you like to speak? Sir? Ma'am?
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Samuelson, and I live on Sandpiper Drive in South Patrick Shores. I'm president of South Patrick Residents Association and a residential rental owner for over 40 years. And I was one of the individuals 15 years ago who worked with the county, with Robin Sabrino and others, to craft this ordinance that we're talking about, because we had an issue in our neighborhood in North Waterway Estates when it was an absolute travesty. So we worked from 2005 to 2006 to get this ordinance in place to protect our neighborhoods. We had no idea we did not have that type of protection, because we just thought that there would never be a hotel next to us in a residential area, and that's exactly what has happened. But this ordinance also created a balance of different types of properties, just not in the same place. There were designated areas. In fact, as we own other property that's in multifamily areas that could be resort or a vacation dwelling, but we would never, ever drop a resort dwelling in a residential area. That is just unbelievable, because right down the street, I actually live next to one, and there were 14 people at a time, animals, a destination wedding, and absolutely pandemonium. And I had just experienced it, in fact, in 2020. So I can speak from experience, having lived next to one and yet fought against them 15 years prior to make sure that all of us in the unincorporated area, what is that, 225,000 people, that we're all protected under that ordinance. And HOAs need this too, because they can take it as a civil matter with their CC&Rs, but they need the law to back them up as well, so they can bring it to the county for help. Because I did call code enforcement, and they did come out, and they took care of the issue. But I really see this also as an issue of forcing homestead owners out, and also causing a problem for affordable housing, which we also pay for in our county taxes. It's one of the issues. We have a department here in the county to foster affordable housing, and yet I know for a fact, being in the business for 4 decades, that you are talking about a travesty in our residential areas. These are land, the land use and zoning is supposed to be used specifically for the health, safety, and welfare of people, something we've been accustomed to now in our residential areas, where developers have built properties and so on and so forth for over 15 years for that protection. And we're asking you not to diminish our protections or our residential property rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, ma'am, would you like to speak in the middle and the back? Over to the right.
My name is Linda Lawton. I live at 113 Margarita Road in Floridana Beach. And for the record, I just want to say that I'm really ticked off that Tobias has put this in the middle of a pandemic, where I have to risk my health to come up here to take care of really important business in my neighborhood. But my tactic is, I just want to say that I moved here 20 years ago, and I raised my boys here. And I watched the children of the neighborhood grow up, and our neighborhood has brought out so many fine men and women that Navy SEALs, Marine Corps people, Black Hawk pilots. We need our neighborhoods in order to raise good, healthy Americans, in order to be able to have them connect with their family and their community. And as far as I'm concerned, this is the wrong time for this, and I think we need to, Brevard will be diminished if we get rid of our neighborhoods like this. They're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we'll scoot up to the next row. Sir, would you like to, no, behind you. Would you like to speak? Ma'am, beside him. Sir? I'm trying, Mr. Glover.
I'll speak really fast.
It's
I'll
okay.
take my 3 minutes. I'll speak fast.
Hold on 1 second. I'm not even going to start the clock on you. Did we find out about a queue as far as the number?
We are verifying to see if we have another member coming, so we'll let you know as soon as we can. Can we give you 5 more minutes?
Okay.
Staff, can he vote in writing and give the vote to you all, and then you read the vote?
At this point, if you could just give us 5 minutes, just 5
Okay.
minutes. But that I would not recommend that option, no. We would have to actually have the public comment and then close the public comment and then have the vote. So.
Okay, sir. Your
Hi.
name and address for the
My name
record.
is Mark Chances. I've lived in Brevard County for 23 years. I moved here for the safe neighborhoods to be separated from the chaotic commercial activities. And since 1995, 90,000 new residents have moved here for the safe neighborhoods with the understanding that they are residentially zoned. I think we can all agree from hearing everybody here that the analysis is just not there in order to decide on this issue, whichever way you were to decide. There's just no data. One of the most important things is that the high risk of the amendment could trigger the loss of our grandfathered exemption, ceding control of our neighborhoods to Tallahassee. The Florida Association of County Attorneys says it's a high risk. The Florida League of Cities says it's a high risk. Thousand Friends of Florida, the attorney for Thousand Friends of Florida, says it's a high risk, all referring to Florida Statute 509. Will our ploy that vacation rentals are different definition than resort rentals work? The FACA, the FLC, and the Thousand Friends all believe that resort dwellings and vacation rentals are the same thing, okay? If you have 10 different lawyers saying something about it, is it true or isn't it true? We don't know the answer, and you don't know the answer because there's not enough analysis. There are enough lawyers and voters, though, that have rejected vacation rentals in many cities and counties throughout Florida, including the 9 that are in Brevard County, that will not give up their exemption, okay? What data are we missing? How many voters are involved in these properties? Are there 20,000? How many voters' properties are involved? Are there 20,000? Are there 50,000? Are there 100,000 properties? How many are on the Indian River Lagoon, on wetlands? The prior 2 issues that you handled were 140 pages of information for less than 5 acres total. We're talking about thousands, maybe dozens of acres that you have 12 pages of data on, okay? Is that enough data to go ahead and make a decision? How many inquiries were there about vacation rentals that were local residents, okay? You've got to take all this into consideration besides the fact that the comp plan basically says that you can't do this, okay? The comp plan, which you are all familiar with from February, which says that you cannot change the densities on the South Beaches from Melbourne Shores all the way to the inlet. Do these densities change? You know they change because right now, how much there's going to be an allowance based on the state of 1 person per 150 gross square footage. That's gross square footage. That means a 3,000 square foot house can put 20 people in it. That means it's going to be sewage coming out of 20 people instead of 2.3 going into the Inner River Lagoon. So I implore you,
sir.
There's been no good notification.
Sir,
There's been
I'm
a ton
sorry,
of
but
protests
time
and conflicting
is up.
legal evidence that
But-
this is not an intelligent thing to do.
Thank you.
Please turn it down. Thank you.
All right, as we move forward. Sir, would you, yes, sir.
My name is Sid Kirshheimer. I live 6735 Angeles Road. It's in Floridana Beach. I live around the corner from Tony. And what she said is absolutely true. The blocks of 67, 6800 block of A1A, the legal ones beachfront. My wife and I have the kind of unofficial job of taking care of our south access. And every weekend without fail, we have to go out there on a Sunday. The renters trash up our beaches. The county spends tens of millions of dollars on beach and dune restoration. I have seen after the last one, kids running up and down on the sliding on them, destroying all the seagrass. These are not neighborhood kids. Without fail, they are renters. There are 3 or 4 within a few houses of us illegally operating. You go to Airbnb or Verbo, they're advertising. They're supposed to be 3-month rentals right now. They're there every weekend. They're just very noisy. There is not any benefit to anybody that lives here. And a lot of these properties are not owned by locals. They're owned by people from other states. They buy them as investment properties. They rent them out. And anyway, I won't repeat everything else, but I will just say from personal experience, we see this weekend. And I will mention one thing. Prior to Jay's meeting with Commissioner Tobias, I spoke to him about a month earlier. I invited him to come on a weekend. And I said, I will tour you. I will show you the houses. You could see live in person, in real time. We'll make you dinner. He said no. He wouldn't meet with us as a group on Zoom. He said I could come to his office individually in Palm Bay. And then Jay took it over and did a meeting. But I invited, same offer to any of you. You want to come down on a weekend? My wife will make you a great meal. We'll take you out there, and you'll see for yourself. So that's all. Please don't do this.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Ma'am, would you like to speak before we put in our order? Ma'am, would you like to speak? Sir? No. Okay, we'll move up to the next row. Ma'am? Just your name and address for the record. And you could bend that microphone down to get closer to it.
My name is Pamela Boardman. I live at 6855 Angeles Road. Neighbors to half these people.
Closer to that mic. Thank you.
Sorry. 6855 Angeles Road in Floridana Beach.
Okay.
Most everybody has already spoken for what I had planned. So I'm just going to cut to the chase and read the very last part of how I plan to finish off my speech. So we'll start there. From South Patrick Shores to the Sebastian Inlet, we are the South Beaches. We are a cohesive communities, not just neighborhoods. We look out for each other. We live together. We work together for the betterment of our communities. We go to church together. We are there for each other in good times and bad. When Hurricane Matthew hit and the island lost power, a generator was found for the elderly couple down the street. The guys were out with their chainsaws going around finding those who needed their help. Everyone walking or driving around in their golf carts to check on everyone else to make sure they're okay. What do you need? We started building our houses in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. It took years to grow, plan, nurture, to make our communities what they are today. We made them. We have residents that have lived in the same houses for 65 to 70 years. We sought out and established crime watch areas. We sponsor portions of A1A roadside cleanup. You see us on the beach picking up trash and debris on a daily basis that is washed ashore. We protect our wildlife and its habitats. Where'd I go? We consider ourselves stewards of the environment that we live in. Our children don't stay indoors and play video games. They're out all the time riding their bikes, trikes, skateboards, scooters, and yes, I've actually seen roller skates. We have regular walkers, joggers, bike riders, dog walkers all on the adult side, all throughout our neighborhood. The point is, we don't just reside, we live in and enjoy our communities. We were born here, we grew up here, we've raised our children here. We're still here when we retire, we work hard, play hard together, we laugh together, and we also cry together when a beloved member of our community moves away or passes on. This is who we are. We are the South Beaches. We come to ask you today to please keep the current zoning laws in place. Please help us preserve our way of life. Please vote no on this new amendment. It doesn't have any benefit for Brevard County. And just a few statistics. Between March and October of this year, at least 27 shootings were connected with Airbnb rentals across this country. In 2019, a full 70% of Airbnb and VRB bookings were instant bookings in 2019. So my father had a saying when I was growing up, and I think it applies now. If it ain't broke, please don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so now we're going to keep moving forward. Sir, would you like to speak?
My name is Mark Havacan. I live on Winona Road, south of Aquarina. I got 5 pages of talking notes, but I'm going to scrap them all. I don't want to be redundant, and I don't want to waste your time. What I'd like to say is, we got a lot of people that have been here many years. That's not me. I've only been here a year, but I took many years to decide this is where I wanted to be. My wife and I are retired. We had 5 different states in mind where we could have gone. I spent a lot of different times here visiting the neighborhood before we bought. I knew most of my neighbors before we bought here. And the reason we bought is because it's a neighborhood. We feel safe, we feel secure. I still know my neighbors, they know me. That's the way I like it. My only question to the board would be, people that advertise and list through Airbnb pay a 3% fee to Airbnb based on the rental. Does that not make our neighborhood commercial? And if it does, how do we change the zoning? Because obviously it's going to have to change if we're going to be zoned commercial. I don't think Airbnb short-term rentals belong in the residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Pat Whittleson. I am a neighbor of Mr. Havacan's on Winona Road in South Melbourne Beach. And I want to speak loud enough, I hope I am, because so many people I couldn't hear, and I don't want to repeat anything,
You just got to
obviously.
get as close as you can to that microphone.
There
you go.
But my question, I have a question for you all. When I heard resort dwellings was now going to be vacation rentals, the impact didn't hit me until I started reading about it. And because resort dwellings were only allowed as commercial entities in certain areas, it didn't dawn on me that, oh my gosh, you mean you changed the name and now we have vacation rentals wherever someone wants to be. So I'm asking, how could that happen? How could how could the Florida legislature say that as big a state as Florida is, north to south, east to west, how could we say vacation rentals will be the same everywhere? Brevard County is a special place. We have world-renowned turtle nesting. We have the lagoon that we're all trying to take care of. It's too important to have a staff come up, and obviously the staff is not looking at the criteria. They couldn't have. Did they actually go to the site? Did they take aerial views? They couldn't have and come to the conclusion that we can have commercial entities right next to our neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I'm pretty sure I went through everyone. Is there anyone that snuck in on me that hasn't spoke that would like to speak? Because I'm fixing to close public comment. All right, we're going to go ahead and close the public comment. And Amanda, could you just go back over again what we're discussing and what's been proposed versus what's existing?
Sure. So this amendment is staff received legislative intent to add a vacation rental definition and then add it as a permitted use to certain zoning classifications.
On that note, board, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Does anyone have questions?
I've got some comments I'd like to make.
Okay, Mr. Joe.
For the last few days, I studied all the objections, and we came in depth. The biggest thing I see in there is that less than 90 and less than 30 days. That's a major objection. I mean, the wildlife and everything else filters into it, but those are your biggest concerns out of all of them. Now, when this was tossed back to the staff by the county commissioners to help get some resolution to this thing, it's very convoluted and very complex. The ordinance is very complex. Nothing's been changed or preempted, so everything remains intact. Is that true?
So additional permissions would be given to have vacation rentals in additional zoning classifications. Resort dwelling remain, but this would open it up to additional zoning classifications.
Right. Well, there's 54 zoning classifications, and in this unincorporated Brevard County, that's a lot. There's a lot going on. There's no intent by the staff or anybody, the commissioners, to take away anybody's individual rights. They're trying to look at the thing that was mandated in the state to make sure it's spelled out and carried out correctly throughout the state. Am I correct?
So the board is not currently required to do anything.
Right.
What they asked was whether or not we could add vacation rental.
Can we do that? Yes.
The county attorney's office believes we can.
Right. The biggest thing I see about
please, hold on, Mr. Joe. Everyone's passionate in here, I understand. So if y'all could just let us work here. Appreciate you being patient. Thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
Some municipalities require additional annual applications and inspections. Is that correct?
That is correct, but if we add vacation rental, there could be no restrictions placed upon it. Abby could give you more details on that regarding occupancy and those sorts of things.
Right. So the responsibility that they carried out in the last year is really in depth. And the more you read it, and the more you read really in depth, and the total ordinance, there's a heck of a lot of work here, and none of it's meant to be harmful to anybody. It just, the thing that could be done, maybe to help out, is the map and on our website, the decision tree and the maps would help everybody understand it more fully.
So those are based on the current regulations. So yes, we could add those potentially to the website to help understand what's currently in place. But those are based on current, not proposed
Well, there's
regulations.
not there now. That's why a lot of people don't understand exactly what's going on, because there's 54 different regs in there. So it's a convoluted, tough thing all the way down the line to understand, but I don't think you can just shove it underneath the doorstep and say it's completely bad. It needs to be studied in depth. We need to get more information to you so that you understand it better, so that everybody understands it better, and find a solution. Those are my comments.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I have a
sir.
Comment, but not questions for staff, but a comment.
Okay.
What this new ordinance does is it essentially opens up all of our zoning categories for vacation rentals with no restrictions. Today, what we have is a limited number of zoning areas where you can have a vacation rental, and there are some restrictions. We're opening this up. I don't know how many of you have had experience with renters. What I believe is that this change is what it's actually going to do is it's going to replace our communities of permanent residents who know their neighbors, have a personal interest in maintaining the area, with transient communities of strangers who don't care about the area. I think this is a very bad idea.
Let's hold it down here. I'm trying to get through this because we got Mr. Ben here that's got to be leaving us, and we need to get to a vote on this.
And I would like to make a
'Cause this is
recommendation.
We are strictly just an advisory board to the county commissioners. Every one of y'all need to be at I believe it's December 8th. You need to be at that meeting, no matter what happens here, because they can change whatever we say. Anyhow, Mr. Ron, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I would recommend, I make a motion that we make a recommendation against this ordinance. We should not do this. We should leave the laws that we have in place, and not change them. They're adequate, they're working. When I watched the video of the BAC report.
BCAC.
BCAC.
Yes, sir.
There was a woman who had vacation rentals. She was very positive about it, and she's it's working for her. She was not espousing a change. She was saying everything in place works. So I think we should leave it alone.
So your motion, Mr. Ron?
So my motion is that we recommend against this ordinance.
Motion to deny?
Motion to deny.
I'll second that motion, but I'd like to make some comments before we take a vote.
Okay.
Just to respond to some of the people out here and some of their comments, I think that certainly one of the, I can't remember who it was, mentioned the Keys and voting against this. If you've been to the Keys, you can see it's all over the Keys. It's illegal what they're doing down there. So there's not just Airbnb, it's not just VRBO, it's a variety of upstart websites that skirt the laws, that are not doing it legitimately, that are not paying the taxes and so forth. And it's very easy to go and rent from an individual and skirt the laws. So if we open this up, what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more of these upstart websites that are going to come in.
Right.
And it's going to make it worse than what it already is. So I think that's another thing, because as the chair mentioned, we're an advisory board. We're not making a vote here today that's going to be final. We can just give a recommendation to that board. So you all need to go to that county commission, and when you do, you need to bring issues up like that about how there are upstart websites out there that are doing it illegally. It's not necessarily just the Airbnbs. Somebody mentioned about Amazon. Amazon does charge taxes here in Florida, but you can go to any number of websites out there that are competitors to Amazon that are not paying the tax. So that same thing is my principle behind one of the big reasons why I'm against this. we also have to look at some of the comments about hotels are being hurt by this. Well, it may sound a little insensitive about what I'm about to say, but it is what it is. I liken this kind of almost to Uber and Lyft. That was a big thing that was fought here years ago, and Uber and Lyft won. Quite simply, they made a better mousetrap, and they put the taxi cab business out of business. So I don't see Airbnb going away. I don't see the vacation rentals going away. It's going to come back, even if our county commissioners don't vote in favor of this. And let's say it goes the way I would like to see it go. It's not going to go away, but you have to be very specific in your arguments to the county commission when you come up there and speak about why you're against this, but not only why you're against it, but what are they going to do to stop it in the future, because it's coming back. And a lot of this comes back to an issue of taxing. And you're all right. You all have 100% valid comments as to why you don't want it. And I agree with pretty much everything everybody said. But at the end of the day, be prepared for a long fight. It's not just this issue today and how they're crafting it today, because it's going to come back next year and the year after that. So that's why I second Ron's motion.
Okay, so we got a motion by Ron, a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, we're going to have to do a count here. Mr. Ron is a nay.
Nay.
Mr. Harry? Nay.
Nay.
Brian's nay. Ben?
Are you nay or aye?
Aye or
I guess
yay?
I'm confused, Mr. Chair. I think the motion was to recommend denial.
Denial,
So
correct.
if you're recommending denial, you would be doing an A and not a nay. Just want to verify that.
My bad.
I recommend denial.
Harry?
Denial. Denial.
Approval.
A for denial.
Approval. Sir, I've got this handled. Yeah, okay, I've made a mistake. I apologize for that. So then we're going to go with the ayes are Ron, Harry, Brian, and Pete. The nays are Ben, myself, and Joe.
4-3.
Correct.
Correct.
And recommending denial.
Correct.
Board of County Commissioners. Okay, very good.
So it passed 4-3 for a denial. All right, upon that, we'll be closing this meeting. Meeting adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.